Student, today I am taking class 8 social science history chapter 10 India after independence. My dear students, in last lesson class chapter 9 we studied how the people struggle for getting freedom in our country. So here we can see that after independence how our government has done the planning, what type of other problems they face in the country and how they solve these problems. So you see here a new and divided nation. What does this means? That India got independence on 15th August 1957. Do you know during that time partition of India, it created a number of problems of independent India. Do you know near about 8 million refugees they came to India from Pakistan, and who needed a shelters and life. That was the biggest problem for our government during that time. So there were almost near about 500 princely states, each of whom had to be persuaded to join the new independent country. Do you know? During that time the new nation had to adopt a political system. So that would be best served that the hopes and expectations of its people. So the population of India in 1957 was near about 345 million. This large population was divided between, during that time, high caste and the low caste, between Hindu community and other communities. In spite of these differences, the people had to live in one nation, and this created a problem of unity. So not only problem of unity, there was also some problem of development, how in our country the development and planning will be done for the future. So what type of problem which is faced by the new government after independence? Problem faced by, see the first problem, the vast majority of Indian, earlier they are lived in the village farmers and the peasants. They depend on only for agriculture activities for monsoon for their survival. Second one, the barber, carpenters, weavers and other service groups of the non-farm sectors of these rural economy would not get paid for their services if the crops fails. So in the cities, some factory workers who are living in very crowded slums areas with little access to education or health. So these types of problems are faced by the government during that time. So if the division between the different sections of the peoples were not mitigated, so what happened? They could result in violence and conflicts every time. So at the same time of the result of economic development would not reach the broad mass. So it could create a fresh division between the rich and poor, between the cities and the countrysides. What is written in constitution? A constitution is written. What does it mean? There were 300 members in the meeting of Constitution Assembly who came from all over the India and from different political parties. During that time the Indian Constitution came into effect on 26 January 1950. So what are the important features of this Indian Constitution are? The important features are, first one is universal adult franchise. Now right to vote. The Indian Constitution adopted universal adult franchise, means all the Indians above the age of 21 would be allowed to vote in states and national election. Soon after independence, India chose to grant the voting right to all the citizens regardless its gender, class or education. Now it became the age 18. During that time, it was the age of 21, the right to vote. Now, equality means the Indian Constitution guaranteed equally before the laws to all the citizens regardless the caste, the religions. Do you know some of the Indian wish that India must be a Hindu state? So India Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru wanted to build a secular state, means the Indian Constitution gave the same right and the same opportunity to all the peoples. There will be no inequality in India. special privilege. What does it mean? Indian Constitution, it offers some special privilege for the poorest and most disadvantaged Indians. So the practices of untouchability that was abolished, a certain percentage of legislature as well as job in government was reserved for the members of these lower caste. Do you know? H.J. Khandekar is one of the members of this constitutional assembly, said that it was the upper caste who were responsible for the Dalits being unfit today. So, along with the untouchables, the scheduled tribes were also granted reservation in seats and jobs. So, the tribals had been deprived of modern healthcare and education, and their land and forests had been taken away from them. So, what type of discussion in Constituent Assembly? The Constituent Assembly discussed that the powers of the central government versus those of the state government. Some thought that the center's interests should be foremost, and other thought that the provinces should have greater autonomy and the freedom. Now, power sharing, how the power will be shared. In order to maintain the balance between central and that of the state government and the local government, the constitution provided the 3 lists of the subjects, so that should be run properly in the India. First one is union list. Union list means the subject like the main subject like taxes, defense and foreign affairs, which would be exclusively responsibility of the center. They will decide regarding this matter. State list with subject like education and health, which center and state would have joint responsibilities. They will together and do the planning. A concurrent list with subjects like forest and agriculture, in which the centers and state would have joint responsibility. Now, after that, what happened in our country, there was a big problem, issue of language, means which language should be used or not, that become an issue. So, another important topic that should be discussed by the Constitutional Assembly was the language with Hindi. Do you know? But non-Hindi speakers had different opinion. Do you know? They even threatened to separate from India if Hindi was imposed on them. So, a compromise was settled. Hindi would be official language of India, and why they had chosen English? English would be used in courts, services and communications between the states and another area. Do you know? Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar was the chairman of this drafting committee, and under his supervision, framing of Indian constitution was finalized. So, how the states will be formed, formation of the states. So, in the 1920, the Indian National Congress, they has promised that after independence, each major linguistic groups of our country would have its own province, and after independence, the scenario was changed. So, what happened? Both Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru and Deputy Prime Minister Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, they were against the creation of these linguistic states. Nehru clearly said that disruption tendency had come to the force to check the nation and had to be strong and united. So, what Sardar Patel also rejected this idea of linguistic provinces, and it would not help the growth of nationalism. So, later the decision of the Congress created a great disappointment among the Kannada speakers, Malayalam, Marathi and the Telugu speakers. So, they began to protest. So, what happened? The strongest protests came from the Telugu speakings of Madras Presidency. Do you know, in October, a veteran Gandhian, Potti Sriramulu, he went on hunger strike, demanding a different Andhra state for Telugu speakers. So, these demands attracted much support. Hartals and burns were observed in many times. But what happened? On 15 December 1952, Potti Sriramulu died. After his death, the protests became so intense that the government agreed to meet their demands. So, on 1st October 1953, the new state Andhra, later Andhra Pradesh, came into being. After what happened? The state reorganization committee was set up and it submitted reports in 1956, and it recommended the redrawing of districts and provincial boundaries for compact province of Assam, Assamese, Bengal, Odia, Tamil, Malayalam, Kannada and Telugu speakers. So the large Hindi speaking region like North India was broken into several states during that time. And in 1960, bilingual states of Bombay was divided into separable regions for Marathi and Gujarati speakers. What happened in 1966? In 1966, the state of Punjab, it was divided into Punjab and Haryana, and Punjab for the Punjabi speakers, Haryana for the Haryanvi or Hindi speakers. Now, after that, what are type of planning done? So, planning for development, what does it means? In 1950, the government has set up planning commission to help to design and execute suitable policies for our economic development of the country. Do you know, in India it is accepted as mixed economy model. What does it mean? Mixed economy means in this model both the states as well as the private sectors would play important and complementary roles in increasing the production in our country. By this they can generate more jobs for the peoples. So in 1956, the second 5-year plan was formulated, which focused on the development of heavy industries like steel plants and on the building of large dams. In this way they focused during that time. Now, the search for independence of foreign policy. You see, India got independence soon after the devastation of Second World War. So, a new international body, United Nations, were formed in 1945. So, in 1950 and 1960, it saw the emergence of the Cold War, and it was a power of rivalries and ideological conflicts between the USA and the USSR. With both the countries, they are creating military alliance. So, the Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru was supporter of non-aligned movement. According to, what does it mean, this non-aligned movement? According to this movement, countries should not join either of these two major alliances. So, India played a very active role in mediating between this American and Soviet alliance. India took humanitarian and moral stand against war, but for one reason or another, many non-aligned countries, including India, they got involved in the wars. So what happened? By the 1970, a large number of countries, they joined this non-aligned movement. The nation 60 years on, what happened? You see, 60 years of independence have passed and we have achieved a lot. But at the same time, there are number of failures. So we can see what type of success and what type of failure. Success, India is still not united. It is still democratic. 13 general elections have been held since independence, as well as hundreds of the states and local election. There is a free press, there is an independent judiciary, and this is the unity in the diversity of a country. What type of failure? What is our failures? Do you know? Despite constitutional guarantees, the untouchables or the Dalit face violence and discrimination even today. You can see so many news we are hearing daily or watching. So we can see here they are too much violated. Despite the secular ideals and in the constitution, and there have been clashes between different religious groups in many states till now. So the gulf between the rich and the poor has grown over there. So if we want to make our India unite, maintain the success and remain unite, so these failures should be removed from the country. Then we got the real unity in our country. So you see some questions and answer. See, name the 3 problems that the newly independent nations face. They are, India faced problems got after independence are, first, the major problems was that refugees of 8 million entered India from Pakistan. They needed shelter and livelihood. At the time of independence, there were almost 500 princely states, and each of whom had to be persuaded to join the new nations. Indian population was almost 345 millions, and this population was in different castes, religion, languages, dresses, foods and professions. What is the role of Planning Commission? In 1950, the Indian government set up a Planning Commission to help design and execute suitable policies for economic development, and it had to achieve the balance between the different regions and states. 5-year plan was launched in 1951, which mainly focused in the development of primary sectors like irrigation and energy, agriculture, community development, transport, communication industry, social services and rehabilitation, etc. The most important features of this phase was active roles of states in all economic sectors. Second 5-year plan followed by Mahalanobis model. It tried to develop the public sector. This plan in 1956 focused strongly on the building of large dams which came under the control of state. What did Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar said that in politics we have equality, but in social and economic life we will have inequality. Dr. Ambedkar played an important role in drafting the Indian Constitution, and he felt that political democracy had to be accompanied by economic and social democracy. He felt that giving all the people the right to vote did not make equal socially or economically. In politics, we have recognized the principle of one man, one value. But in our social and economic structure, what we see? We continue to deny the principle of one man and one value. So what Ambedkar reiterated, that division between upper caste and lower caste has to be wiped out for India, and then we get the true democracy. After the independence, why were they reluctant to divide the country linguistic line? Mahatma Gandhi's dream of one nation was shattered due to partition of India and into India and Pakistan. The Congress leader was skeptical, having doubts of something like about the further division of the states on the basis of languages. So, the partition of India resulted in the death of millions of the peoples who were killed in the riots between Hindus and the Muslims, and they feared that this may happen if the country was further divided on linguistic lines. So, Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru and Deputy Prime Minister Vallabhbhai Patel was against the creation of these linguistic states. Now, today I had finished all the SST and do the revision for the test. Thank you.